This podcast is part of the Planet Broadcasting Network.
Visit planetbroadcasting.com for more podcasts from our great mates.
The following episode of TOFOP is rated MA. It may contain Batman references, time travel references, sexual references, lost trains of thought, and mild coarse language. TOFOP advises that the program is not suitable for anyone under the age of 15 or anyone who enjoys succinct, coherent conversation that might actually have a point. Minors must be accompanied by a parent, guardian, or priest. This is John Deek speaking.
Everyone relax, this is TOFOP. I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Wil Anderson.
And we're joined by two special guests.
Yes, Winnie and Ramona are both here. Church is actually around as well, so she might...
Yeah, it's bloody Animal Farm in this place. Two legs bad, four legs good. We're outnumbered. If these animals get together and decide they can take us, they probably could.
Well, also now I'm living in a house of like all women.
Yeah, right.
You know, it's so like there's Amy and then there's like two female dogs and there's a female cat. So I am, well, it's in yes, hello girls. I know. Yes, look at you.
That's pretty much that's how I grew up, because I've got two older brothers, but they were out of the house by the time I was old enough to really remember. Well, so Ramona is making out with Wil as we speak. She's jumped into his lap. She's into the microphone. And now Winnie is doing some kind of break dance.
She thinks that my carpet is some sort of rap mat.
Winnie, if you get some cardboard, we'll just flatten some cardboard. You'll be able to get much more spin going on there.
I'll take you into the city. I'll get you busking.
Did we intro the show? I can't remember. Everyone relaxes,
so.
TOFOP? Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Charlie
we introduced
Clausen.
the guest.
I'm
Charlie
Anderson.
Clausen. Yeah.
We've got two guests.
We're recording back to back. You're hearing this. It's recorded just after the episode you heard last week, where we put some sizzle on a topic that had sizzle and then sizzled out because
the Fyre Festival, because I had watched the documentary and we were going to talk about it, and then it's been like a month or more.
Because we had to work took over. We had to put up a best of episode, and then I got the time wrong, and so it was out again. And we told people, everybody, like, check it out, watch it on Netflix, do your homework, we're going to talk about it. And then we don't even do a show.
And people did.
Yeah.
And it's been so long now since I watched the documentary that I'm not really sure I can remember what happened.
And it's also one of those things too where, like, in this modern news cycle, stuff is hot for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, this would have been a great episode to do.
Why are you talking about Russian doll?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you motherfuckers. What are you going to bring up, Murder Mountain?
2 weeks ago, this would have been hot. But I checked it out on your recommendation.
Yes. And what did you think? Did you know much about the Fyre Festival previously to watching?
I knew the headlines. Like, I knew there'd been this disastrous, but I didn't know any of the details or the, influencer element or anything like that. The first thing I'd say about it is, because what I was doing, I was writing at the time, so I would spend most of the day in the office writing, and then at night I would come home and I would watch a bit of Fyre Fest before I went to sleep. Bad idea. It was so anxiety inducing. I broke it up over like 3 nights, and each night I was like, oh, this is awful. This is awful. And I know this train wreck is coming.
Well, you know what it is? They should just call it Cocaine, the movie. Like,
everything seems like a good idea while you're high.
Yeah. I mean, that's literally the one sort of unspoken thing of the entire documentary, I think, on a sort of like bigger level, is that they never just say all these things are explainable.
Yeah. If
you consider the amount of cocaine that they must have been doing.
It's not
because it's all a cocaine fever dream. It's all the shit that you would come up with. Like on a huge night on cocaine, you'd be like, we're going to have a festival.
Yeah.
And we're going to do it on Pablo Escobar's, mate, on Pablo Escobar's island.
Yeah.
That's where we're going to have the festival. And we'll get like hot models and we'll make a video and we'll get jet skis and there'll be like private planes and shit. It's going to be amazing. And everybody's had that like late night drunken drug conversation about some big plan, has then sobered up the next day and decided not to fucking do it.
I remember being at a party with a mate of mine who was taking it easy because he had to drive to Adelaide the next day. And so he was hanging out with us and stuff, and it was 5 a.m. and we all were like, mate, don't be so bummed out that you can't party. You've got to go to Adelaide because we're going to come with you. Yeah. We're all going to Adelaide. And for the next hour, like, we're making plans. We were hooking up accommodation, sending texts out and stuff. Then the sun came up. All of a sudden, he's walking to the car. He's like, so you guys coming? Nah. I'm coming down real hard.
What I really need to do is be in a car for 14 hours.
What I can't stop thinking about is the fact that my father never hugged me.
Well, they had so much cocaine that the party never ended until it ended spectacularly.
But the thing about it is, someone who has produced events and stuff, there is an element when you've got lots of moving parts, like, you've got technical crew, you've got creative performers, you've got all this kind of stuff, and you're trying to coordinate everything, and you'll pick a venue and stuff. But even if you are the most well-organized production crew or production company or whatever, you're constantly getting fed problems. Like, there's a clash of dates. Oh, they're doing construction across the road. And so as a producer, your job is just to problem solve. But there is an element where you're like, you'll open your email and there's like fucking 20 emails, all fucking problems. And there's an element of you that is just like, okay, so this person's freaking out, but we're just going to go to that date. We just keep sort of saying to people, it's fine. If we just keep pushing forward,
it'll all come together on the
It'll
night.
all come together. So there's an element of faith.
Even in a really sort of minor way, like, we were discussing off air, that I'm coming up to, my new show, and I'm doing it in a different way this year. I'm not going to Adelaide or Brisbane to run it in before Melbourne. It's a new process. I'm worried about the process. I don't know where I'm at in the timing of the process, but you've got to keep the faith that if you just keep, regardless of the fact that I'm not where I wanted to be or that things aren't, going to where I thought the plan would be, you've just got to keep the faith that you'll pull it all together and it'll all be okay.
Well, I remember...
Whereas my comedy festival show this year may well be the Fyre Festival.
I remember a show, Will, not too long ago. We did a live show at the Comedy Festival where I arrived from Los Angeles the night before. You had gotten very sick the day of the show. I hadn't prepared anything, and so I went out and made some memory card badges. There was an element there of, well, look, if I just keep the wheels spinning, then maybe it'll come off. Not always, it does come off.
Right, yeah. I've never felt worse that night. That is literally the worst I've ever felt during any show that I've ever done.
The one night I needed you to bring a little extra.
Yeah.
It was the night you couldn't barely stand up.
I mean, I could barely...
You were so ill. I remember you walked through the door and your complexion was not of this earth. Like, for a second, I thought you'd been replaced with some kind of synthetic.
Well, I remember clearly because I'd done a show at the Arts Festival, my comedy festival show that night at the Arts Centre. And so big show, like 2,000 people, like a really posh venue, like, a really sort of should have been a really wonderful and enjoyable part of the night. But it was kind of made less wonderful and enjoyable by the fact that halfway through the show, I thought I was going to vomit in front of 2,000 people. So, and then the fact that I then had to come and do the podcast and was just... Like, I'd never felt more. Normally, in comedy, they talk about that idea of like Dr. Showbiz, the idea that once you actually start performing, then you'll be okay. But that night, Dr. Showbiz pronounced me dead on arrival, Charlie.
So imagine that, but everyone in the audience had paid $30,000. $30,000 to maybe win a broken memory card
I
badge.
think this podcast is the opposite of Fyre Festival because nobody expects that it's going to be good, and on rare occasions it actually outdoes what it actually promises to be.
Did it make your skin crawl? Like, I mean, I don't know what you're like with social media, but for me, it's definitely a love-hate thing, which is like, I want to be too cool for it and cynical and mock people on social media. But by the same token, I'm on social media. I post stuff on social media. I get that kind of endorphin rush where you get likes on something that you've written or something that you've posted or whatever. So when you see the genesis of why it caught fire, there's this like, ugh, God, what's happening to us? Like, we're also like susceptible to this bullshit, this technology that wasn't even around 10 years ago.
So I've been making a really conscious effort in my life to engage with social media and the way that we're being manipulated by, tech and the online world and, data monitoring and all these sort of things, to try to be an active and an aware consumer. Like you talk about that idea of the dopamine hits and the way that these things, because these things are businesses.
Did I say dopamine? That's what I meant to say.
Well,
I think I said serotonin.
Well, either way, you're talking about the same
chemical release.
Sort of chemical release, that you're getting this sort of feeling that an addict might get when they take their favorite drug. And that's not by accident. We talk about, I mean, I think this might be one of the things I talk about in my show, but we talk about the idea of us becoming addicted to these things without talking about the truth, which is that these things have set out to be addictive. The very nature of their business model is that they need us to keep checking in, and they need us to want to be... So they have created a system whereby you do get that little hit, because if you get that little hit, you'll keep coming back and doing the thing, creating the content for them. Now Ramona is...
kneeling on my balls.
Ramona's like, there's another man in the house.
All right, she's got her nose right up there. Hi, how you doing? Just a little uncomfortable. I'm trying to talk into the microphone, but you've got your nose against my nose. What is it?
Winnie's breakdancing again.
And this is why we need to film the podcast. So there's that element of this repulsion about
She wants you to rub her back. By
influencer culture. But
okay, so what I was going to say about that is that I've been trying to take out that addictive element of it, because there is a necessity to use social media in my life and my work and these sort of things, and it does bring some positives to my life. But what I've been trying to do is lean into the positives and steer away from the negatives.
Yeah.
So, for example, and I apologize to anyone who messaged me or whatever in response to things, and I'm not getting back to you, it's because I'm trying not to read responses to things. If I post something, I try never to check back in about like how many people. I'm trying to take all qualitative measures out of it. Like, right. That thing did better than that thing. I'm not comparing that. I'm not looking at that. Like, so to use it for what it is and what it can be positive for, but not to get caught up in the bullshit of it and the arguments of it and the drains on your attention. I've been trying at home to put my phone away or turn it onto airplane mode or whatever, so that, because what I noticed is I'll be watching TV or whatever, and just because it's there, you're just like, oh, I'll just see what's on Twitter, or I'll just flick through a thing.
It's the
and
worst,
you're like,
man.
I don't need to. And I'm not concentrating on this TV show that I was sitting down to watch.
Yeah.
I'm like, so I've been trying to do less of that. But this movie is almost
it's that to
the extreme.
The extreme.
Yeah.
100%. But is it also, because you see the way when those models first start posting those vids, and then, it goes...
Okay, can we do Weekly Planet style?
All right.
Tell me what you think the story was.
The story was a shyster and a rap star leverage the fame of a small number of very famous influencers to trick people into thinking they're going to have an amazing time without any of the logistics in place to ensure that happens.
Yeah. That is basically what it is. It is a great advertisement with a terrible product, and it shows the power of how we can be. That it's just a meta example and a big, bold example of the small ways that we are constantly being adjusted and manipulated every single day.
But it was targeted because that Billy guy, the shyster, his previous occupation was basically like a club. You pay a membership to a club and you get early tickets to like fancy restaurants or wine tastings or whatever. But the whole thrust of the business is exclusivity, like belong to something that's sort of, it's a status kind of thing. And I think he was in New York or something. That's where his main clientele was. That was a card. It was like some kind of membership card or something.
It
like
had
that.
some really pretentious name.
Yeah, but it spoke
Magneto. No, Enigma. No,
yeah, something like
I don't
that.
know.
But it spoke to that idea of that elitism, especially amongst kind of young, beautiful, rich people.
Yeah. That being young and beautiful and rich is some club that it's great to belong to because everybody in it is young and beautiful
and having
rich.
a great time.
Yeah.
Like because you're only happy when you have those three things.
Exactly.
Youth, beauty, and money.
Exactly. And the party's never going to end.
Never going to end. And that's not depressing in any way.
Happy New Year, kill me. Happy New Year, kill me.
But that was the other thing that sort of leapt out to me, because I tried to put myself in the shoes of like some 20-year-old, who bought tickets or borrowed money or, was able to buy tickets to that or thought it was going to be the party of the year. But even when I was young and dumb, and I would have looked at something like that and gone, like nothing about it to me seemed like, it's like you want the festival that's advertising to be, obviously a bit exclusive and cool, but this was like so mainstream with the most like mainstream social media influencers. I looked at it and like, I would not want to hang out on an island with these beautiful people. I mean, I like to look at them, but spending 3 days with these people, even if it was an amazing island paradise. Like I've been to festivals that I've really liked, and even after a day at that, I'm like, I could probably go home now. Like I've had enough time, and that's with artists and people that I like, friends of mine.
Oh yeah,
You.
I don't want to be on an island
Yeah.
with people I like for 3 days.
Yeah. But that was
okay. But so,
because I was asking Gemma about it today. I was talking about like Gen X versus millennial, and I was like, I sort of feel like when we were younger, the currency of cool was about anti-establishmentism. It was just like if it was anti, like anyone who purported to be the best or the coolest or whatever, get fucked. We're gonna play 3 chords and be in a grunge band. Like that was it was like a cynical attitude. That was how we measured what was cool. Whereas now I feel like it's the opposite. It's like mainstream success. Like you want to be part of the crowd. There are these movements happening. You want to be part of the movement.
well, the measure is like things like how many Instagram followers someone has, or like how many endorsements deals they have, or fame being a thing that in of itself is to be admired, rather than examining the reason that person is famous. In the old days, that idea of somebody being a mysterious artist, and there still are. I mean, there's plenty of artists and musicians and comedians, all those sort of things who aren't on Twitter or Instagram and these sort of things. But that used to be admired, I think, in a way that it's probably not admired now.
Because some people do it really well. Like that's the thing is, because the reason I was talking about it with Jen was like, did we get shortchanged? Were we like, if I'd been less cynical and more kind of like open, would I be happier and more successful because I wasn't scared to try things in case it wasn't, that's cool? Or have I turned down opportunities because I felt like I don't want to sell out?
You would be more successful.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that you would be happier.
No.
And I think that I know that. I can see that in my career. There are small changes that I could make to what I do, how I present myself and the style of what I do. And they wouldn't have to be massive overhauls of what I do to be more broadly and commercially successful than what I am. But I don't think that they would make me happier. They would make me more successful.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't make me happier.
But you look at like entertainers today, the ones who are on social media, like a Patton Oswalt, right? Is amazing on Twitter, does stand up, he acts, voiceovers. Like he's involved in everything. There's probably things that, he turns down, obviously, but he's not over guesting on a sitcom or, doing a voice of a cartoon rat or whatever. Look at The Rock. I mean, The Rock is the biggest movie star in the world who probably doesn't wrestle anymore, but wouldn't turn down a chance to wrestle at WrestleMania while also doing a TV show. Well, now he's hosting like a game show. Like he's basically doing It's a Knockout. And 20 years ago, if the biggest star in the world, if Bruce Willis, had done all that stuff, I feel like we wouldn't have accepted it. I don't know, maybe.
Well, and the other thing is, like, in that Instagram world and whatever, like The Rock is an amazing online social media presence. Like, he, whether it be, him posting his workouts or his dogs or, his cheat days and what he's eating on his cheat days, he has an amazing capacity to relate to his audience. Like, I sometimes think, like, Russell Crowe, for example, is a good example of someone who I think originally we were, making fun of Russell Crowe a bit when we started,
I've come to like Russ a lot.
Twitter has been a massive, massive part of that.
Yeah.
I just think the way that his real personality, his Twitter personality.
I think he's also changed a bit. I feel like Russ is relaxing into who Russ is.
Yeah.
Like I think there was a bit of a pressure to be the new Brando or, he took himself very seriously and stuff. But I think now he's got a great sense of humor. Him and Sam Neill, like, are two of the most entertaining Twitter accounts going around.
Yeah, so Russell Crowe, great example of someone whose Twitter makes me like him more than I liked him before. I would say that I am an unashamed fan of Russell Crowe now.
Yeah.
And can celebrate still the things that are so, Russell Crowe about him. Like, it doesn't mean that you have to love everything he does. Sometimes I'm amused by Russell because Russell is still Russell. Like, you can still go the full Russell.
Yeah.
And yet there are other...
You know what he tweeted the other day that made me laugh? Where he retweeted someone saying, "Hey, Russell, I just watched Robin Hood, and as far as I'm concerned, like you're the best Robin Hood ever." And he just wrote "one heart at a time," and I wasn't sure if he was joking or not. And I thought that was amazing because I appreciate both. Like, I enjoy both. One of them, he's like, yeah, he seriously thinks that he's winning him over one heart at a time. Another one's like, he's got a good enough sense of humor to know that he's not winning him over.
I suggest that if you were drawing Venn diagrams, there would be a massive overlap. And then there are other people who you've admired pieces of their work, but then you like...
You're talking about Ricky Gervais.
I am talking about Ricky Gervais. Absolutely 100% I'm talking about Ricky Gervais.
I knew exactly where
I
you're going.
have a great friend of mine is his name is Rich Hardcastle, and he is an amazing British photographer. And we met when he was taking my photo. He used to do a lot of comedians' photos, but also does he does the BAFTAs. He does a whole bunch. He's a really great photographer, and he stayed at my place in LA. And as a thank you, he printed off, like, it gave me some originals of some of his photos.
Wow.
So one of them is a beautiful photo of Stephen Fry, like, it's amazing. And the other one, and they're just like, just essentially sort of like, portraits. And the other one's of Idris Elba. And they're both just these amazing photos that he took. And then, as the best present, he got me this giant sort of like poster size, like, print of Ricky Gervais, signed by Ricky Gervais, like, to me,
Wow.
from Ricky Gervais. And his Twitter account has meant that I've never put it up.
I actually stopped following him a long time ago.
I
don't
should.
know.
That's what I actually should do. I should stop following him and just, like, in the way that Amy doesn't read articles about what Morrissey said lately.
Yeah.
I should just watch.
You'll enjoy his work
Watch
more.
the original Office
And extras.
and not follow him on Twitter or watch any of his new work.
So how do we dovetail back from Ricky Gervais to the Fyre Festival?
Oh, okay. So
where are we at?
Okay.
Influences.
So the whole thing starts, they start telling this story. At the start, it all kind of looks good.
Yeah.
Right?
High flyers. They've got big agencies working for them. Fuck Jerry, who back then were just a bunch of lovable rogues running completely original content on their Twitter account.
Hasn't been a great time
Instagram.
for Fuck Jerry. But Fuck Jerry also, my understanding is they were behind... Are they behind this film as well, or behind this film
I think
to
they
a
got
certain
paid
extent?
for this film.
Yeah, okay. So
Netflix paid them.
So the film doesn't paint them in a particularly bad light. It paints them in as a bit of like, we can't believe we got taken in by this con man.
That's the whole thing. It's everyone caught up in the wake of this con man, because they speak to everyone apart from Ja Rule and this Billy guy, but every other peripheral and, a couple of the investors, but like everyone who is working in the marketing or the actual sort of logistics side of things. But it has that unmistakable air of you got bamboozled by that first party that they had there when they shot the video. Like,
now, here's the thing about that is, for this whole thing to work, for the conceit of what this,
to sell this party.
but to sell the idea that because the kind of conclusion you could on first viewing draw out of this documentary, let's call it that, but whatever the fuck it actually is that everyone was taken in by this amazing. Yeah, that's the way they tell it.
Yeah.
Like, he had all this enthusiasm.
Well,
and he knew what he was
took
doing.
the
And
top 7 models,
Yeah.
Instagram models in the world, flew them to an island for 3 days, and just videotaped them dancing around in bikinis and riding jet skis and all this kind of stuff. And
But
a
when they
lot
sho-
of really awkward kind of like, because what's on camera is them laughing at a good time, but then there's this really awkward scene where they're trying to get the girls to skinny dip, or it's like, hey, why don't we all just like jump in the pool? And, you can see where it's headed, and you can just see the girls just like, no, like, we're not going to do that.
this is just a paid job.
And there's one of the makeup artists is like, obviously being a good cover, playing the bad guy for the girls. Is like, we just don't understand why you want them to do that. And the guy's just like, come on, let's all jump in the pool. We're going streaking. Let's go, everybody, we're going streaking. No.
Would it be weird if we all just made out? Should we all just make out?
It's
Just to
just
see.
not happening. But it was such a stark contrast. Like it really, and then I've like worked on sets where you see the final product and then you see the amount of work that goes into it. And yeah, they are just all working. These women are like professionals at making things look effortless and beautiful and relaxed. Even if they're standing in freezing cold water and, you know, there's wind blowing.
Oh, right. You see it all the time. I mean, well, you had that experience because you shot a TV show where it was always summer at Summer Bay.
Exactly.
But it wasn't always summer where you were shooting
No.
the TV show. And, you know, if you look closely enough, sometimes you can see when somebody's writhing around on the beach, meant to be looking all sunny and stuff, that it was really cold and rainy that day.
Also, like rain it has to be really heavy rain for it to show up on camera. So often we'd shoot in the rain where you're pretending like it's a hot day, like the bushfire is raging out of control.
I am sure sweaty. That's why my hair's so wet, because of how hot it is.
But yeah.
Okay, so but the thing I was going to say was the whole conceit is that everybody in it's a bit like, well, you know, we were taken in by this guy.
Well, they're getting fucking paid. Like they're
But I mean, even the people who worked for him and
right.
around him and whatever. But I never saw that idea that he was some sort of brilliantly charismatic figure, because even in those initial shots when they're having that party, all the shots they've got of him, like that one shot in particular where he's on the jet ski and he's got the beer in one hand and he's just like cruising by, you'd like, I would have just seen that and gone, I don't trust this guy one bit.
I don't feel like people. Yeah, I don't feel like anyone was inspired by this charismatic. Like I've worked with con men, and like there is even the guys who are kind of like obviously a bit nuts. If they have enough element to enough of a creative spark to them, you're like, well, maybe they're just, you know, maybe they're just left of center, and you know, and so you do allow that. But he was not a creative. Like he was a button-down corporate dork drinking Coronas and riding a jet ski with a full sleeve shirt. You know, like the guy wasn't cool. But there's also
and that bit where they're filming and he passes out on the beach drunk.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you, like,
They
I
stepped
don't know,
over
would
him.
you work on a job where the guy who's like the producer of the entire thing passes out drunk on the beach? Like, would you continue?
happens all the time in advertising where, like, you know, they will pick a location based on the fact that, oh, let's go to Byron Bay for 3 days. And the agency and all because they don't have anything to do on a shoot.
Right.
Like occasionally they'll watch a split and they'll approve things, but realistically they don't need to be there. Like everyone's agreed upon what's going to get filmed and stuff. You don't need like 6 or 7, but they all turn up, especially if, oh, we're going to fly to Hawaii to shoot this or we're going to do whatever. So that is not, I mean, it would be pretty embarrassing to have one of your like agency guys flat out, but it wouldn't be uncommon.
Okay, so they filmed this amazing promo with all these sort of Instagram influencers.
Well, that's the beautiful thing, and maybe this is the filmmaking nerd come out of me. The director is like, we had no fucking idea what we were doing.
Right.
Like the guys had no plan, we had no plan, so we just shot everything. And look, when you got talent in front of the camera, beautiful women in a beautiful location, you're going to be able to cut together 60 seconds, which is probably, and so in 3 days, you'll get something.
Which is what they did.
Yes.
And they shot together this amazing thing, and then it was shared by everybody, all these people who were... Like, it was smart in that way that they recognise what a lot of people want to do, which is we're going to get someone in our show or on our radio show or who's got, 500,000 Instagram followers. So when they plug that thing or that product or whatever, you hope that their Instagram followers are going to buy it. So only one of them, I believe, mentioned that it was a paid post when they posted it.
Right.
So how do you feel about that? Because we live in this world where in the old days, if you were being advertised to, you knew that it was an ad.
Yeah.
Whereas these days,
I think
there's
I
a
can tell.
fine line between like knowing something that is a paid, because I actually have no problem that if you're Emily Ratajkowski or whatever her name is, because I think she was the one who might have said that it was a paid advertisement. You put this promo up and you go, this is a paid post and whatever, then fine. We know it's an ad. And we can take it with the grain of salt that, we take all advertising and claims in advertising. But if you just post it as here's a promo for this amazing thing, do you think it's the consumer's responsibility to be viewing everything as like, I should be asking questions here? Or does that responsibility fall on the person? Like I guess what I'm asking you is, how much do you think is the responsibility of the model who posts it, if she doesn't mention it's an ad, versus how much of it is the responsibility of the audience to go, this is probably an ad and I should ask more questions?
Generally, I think buyer beware. Unless the influencer is like just say you are like a personal trainer or a chef or something, and you say like this thing is like vital for heart health or blah, 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 blah. And the only reason you're saying that is because you've been paid for it. I think that needs to people to be aware.
So, like, for example,
Yeah.
if I'm going to use the example of vitamins, because most vitamins under scientific testing are just expensive urine, right? There are some vitamins that work for specific people. Expensive urine.
Expensive urine.
Urine.
As in piss.
Yellow gold. Yeah. You take the vitamins,
right.
you piss them out, and that is all the process that has happened.
Right.
You know, mostly if you're eating a healthy...
For some reason, I was like, what? It's dehydrated urine?
Yeah, exactly. Did you not know that vitamin C is made of dehydrated urine? That's why it's orange.
Your piss is orange? I think you need to go to a doctor.
Well, if you're taking a whole bunch of vitamins, that's kind of the point. Is
Right.
that like the reason that your piss would be gold if you're taking a bunch of vitamins is because you don't need those vitamins in your body and they're passing straight through. A lot of the vitamin industry is basically based on like not much scientific evidence.
It's self-regulated too.
Yeah.
And so I think the rule is if 10%, if you contain 10% of the advertised product, so it's like whatever, like herb, then you can pack the other 90% with talcum powder.
Right. So much like the drug model for most drug dealers,
exactly.
whether they be vitamin or otherwise. But so for
Vitamin
example,
Mitsubishi.
what I was going to say is this. So if you get a sports person to be in an advertisement for a brand of vitamins, chances are that sports person didn't benefit from taking those vitamins in their sporting career, but you're buying the idea. We identify this person as being fit and healthy. They're now telling me about vitamins. If I take those vitamins, I will be fit and healthy like that person. Now, if that's in a TV ad, you can go, well, this is an ad. I'll take it with a grain of salt. But if that person was just on their Instagram or whatever telling you the secret to my success, the reason I can run 100 kilometers, a day or whatever is because I take these vitamins, and not declaring that they are being paid by that vitamin company, is that an unethical thing to do? And how much should we be every time somebody says to us, try this thing or do that thing, should we think, are they being paid to? Do we have the right to know they're being paid to tell us
Cash for
that?
comments.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, fuck, I don't know. Like, I just feel like I don't necessarily feel like first of all, I suspect that anyone on Instagram, it could be selling to me at any time. So I don't, if I see someone talking about a product that like a blanket that a doona that they bought that they love or whatever, I assume
That
they've
someone's
been
paid them to...
Yeah, because
do?
because I myself have never gone on Instagram or Twitter just to rave about a product that I love. You know how some people say, oh, thank you, Qantas, I had such a great flight. I've never done that or anything like that. I just don't feel the need to express that shit on social media.
Okay, but say, for example, I read Osher Ginsberg's book, which I enjoyed very much, and then so I post on Instagram.
And he did sponsor this show.
Yeah.
So this is going to sound like a paid endorsement, whether you liked it or not.
But this is the point. You get to that point now where people are, well, is he saying that because, Osher, slung some bucks TOFOP's way, or is he saying it because he genuinely enjoyed the book?
Yeah, I mean...
Unless you're specific... Osher's book is just an example of the broader...
If you flip it, right? The only time... I always think that people are selling me something if they mention a product in a social media post, because what are you just that kind of selfless that you're like, everyone needs to know about the great night's sleep I had on my Casper mattress?
Guys, I don't know if you've heard about this product, Coca-Cola, but it's delicious.
I also think too that in the same way that we take sponsors on this show, because we've turned down certain sponsors that were like, we don't think that sort of really gels for us or our audience or whatever. And
I've actually been surprised by our high standards, or maybe just the sort of people who want to advertise on our podcast.
I do feel like you and Sam fucking sold me out once when we had like a credit agency approach us. And because what happens is Sam, our other producer, he will send us through like potential sponsors. And I think in a quick email I said, yeah, fine, cool, no problem. And then you wrote back this very thoughtful thing about like credit agencies are predatory, blah, 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 blah. And then Sam just wrote back, don't you feel like a cunt now, Charlie? And I was like, I didn't do any research into the credit industry. I just thought, sponsor, great, let's go.
Lucky one of us is a spoiled sport.
We could have been rich, goddammit. Rich.
But okay, so all right, so they get to this island, they make this amazing promo. They say they're going to have this like ultimate party,
Pablo Escobar's private island. The one condition being with the island's owner is that you do not mention that it was Pablo Escobar's island.
And they mentioned in the promo video that it was Pablo Escobar's island.
Yeah, so they get kicked off the island.
Because they said they'd bought it, which they had not.
Right, did they say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that they'd bought the island. Well, it's in the thing where they say Billy told them that he'd bought this island. He had not bought the island. They had arranged to rent the island on the one condition that they didn't mention the thing that they first mentioned.
So then it moves to not a, what's an atoll? What is it called? Like a peninsula.
A peninsula, yeah.
A little peninsula in an industrial estate. Essentially, like if you drive into Port Phillip Bay, when you're going in past Port Melbourne and Williamstown with all the like refineries and stuff, imagine a resort just next to that.
Yeah, it's like a beautiful island, but with more concrete. Yeah, it's not a great
Well,
location.
the way they sold it was like, if you've ever been to like Coachella or one of those kind of beautiful summer festivals where they have like super expensive glamping tents and, you know, it looks like an Oasis, you know, type arrangement. Not the band Oasis, but like an Oasis.
Yeah, no,
in
there's
the
two
desert.
brothers always fighting.
Yeah. So that's what they sold it on. But what they had was like UN refugee tents, like humanitarian crisis relief tents.
Okay, so we're skipping right ahead,
Sorry.
but that's okay. I mean,
Ramona's trying to kiss me.
yeah, she is.
Maybe
So-
maybe it's because I put on the funky called my This is last week's episode to get that joke. Just started. She's fully hashtag me too. Your dog is being completely inappropriate. She's got me pinned to the couch. She's like spread eagle on top of me. Like she's rubbing her breasts all over me. Get off me. Hey. You have to get down there.
I gotta be honest with you, that makes me feel a little less special.
She's giving me a hickey. I think I really did. This is what happened to Tone Loke last week. I mean, it didn't happen to Tone Loke last week. We talked about it last week, and now it's happening to me. Basically, Ramona just bloody assaulted me. Wasn't cool with that.
Ramona.
No.
Ramona.
Enthusiastic consent. That was not enthusiastic.
Oh, wow, she was enthusiastic.
You know what she did? You know why she did it? Now she wants me to scratch it because I was scratching her back.
Yeah.
And I stopped for 5 minutes, and so she basically just said, "Listen, kid, you scratch my back, or I make out with you for the next half hour."
She's like, how about we make out? Now take off your bikini and splash around in the water. We're just getting some B-roll. So things start to go to shit. Because the plan was that they were sold the idea, they'd fly them in on private planes. Yeah. It'd be this exclusive...
A cashless festival where you put 10,000 credit on a wristband or something.
And you know, the thing is, in some ways, I can see how this works. Because I went to Coachella before Coachella was 2 weekends, before Coachella used to sold out, before it became this sort of like,
institution,
fashion festival that it now is. And so realistically, all they were doing was taking a step up from the VIP tent at Coachella.
Well, it fitted in with Billy's MO, which is exclusive entertainment for rich wankers.
It was a weird lineup too. It was such a weird lineup.
Who was it?
Acts.
Blink 182.
Blink 182 and like some electronic band, band or artist.
Was it Phoenix?
No, Diplo or like someone.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
And then, oh God, like I mean, Tiger.
I can't.
Just a weird bunch of like things where you're just like, I'm not even sure
what's
why.
the tone of this?
Yeah.
And it was a 3-day festival, right?
I think so. I think it was meant to be 3 days because there's a part of me that goes, you got a bunch of money. You're young and beautiful. You're going to some beautiful island. Yeah.
And where was the island? Bahamas? No. Was it near?
I think somewhere that part of the world maybe.
Yeah.
So, I get that. You're going to fly in on private planes. You're going to be surrounded by beautiful people, Instagram influencers and celebrities and stuff. You're going to listen to some music. You're
None of
gonna
that appeals
party
to me.
all weekend.
Like if you told me that like next weekend you're taking me to the Fyre Festival, but like a good version with beautiful people, everything's taken care of. Like it still sounds like, really? We can't get off the island? There's something about that just makes me go, I don't want that. Even though I've done 3-day festivals where I've stayed at the festival, part of me needs to know I can get out. I mean, if I take a lot of fucking acid, I'm going to have a real problem. I'll need to get off the island.
Well, no. I agree with you. It's my worst nightmare. It's like being stuck in the birdcage at the Melbourne Cup for 3 days in a row.
That's it perfectly. That's watching it. That's how I felt, was like, oh, these people who start the day looking glamorous and well groomed, and then by then it's just messy and just fucking dickheads everywhere.
And so, but there is people who do that all the time, right? Those aspects of society already exist, whether it be at the races or whether it be that exclusive club or whatever, those sort of things. So there is already that element of society that is happening around us. This is just like, I can understand how someone who wants to get into the Lavazza tent at the birdcage at the races, or, went on the Bachelorette so that they could get invited to some movie premieres or whatever, also thinks it would be a really cool idea to go to Pablo Escobar's island and be surrounded by beautiful people and wear your bikini and,
Well, it felt like, because I feel like some of the people they interview in the show are influencers themselves or like YouTubers or whatever. So there's that element. But the interesting one are the punters, the ones who had no financial gain. They were just going to go there, drink some tequila and listen to Blink 182. Like,
I mean, you're not making great choices.
What are you thinking? 30 grand you're going to spend on that? I just don't know that. Because the idea is you would fly into whatever the mainland airport was, and then you'd take a chartered flight, which was meant to be a private jet, I believe, from the video, which turned out to be just like a twin engine, like
it turned out to be one of the
Rex
worst
Airways
planes of all time.
Yeah, and you fly to the island, but that's just that's, I think, more money than sense. Clearly.
Okay, so we're in this process. Okay, so there's so many elements of it that are fantastic. One of my favorites is the dude who taught himself to fly, their pilot, who had taught himself to fly using like online
the simulation video games
on Microsoft or something like that. So taught himself to fly, but also happened to be the most sensible person in the entire movie, because he got sacked because he told them that what they were planning was impossible to pull off.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, we can't have negative Nellies like you involved in this organisation.
I remember working on a show, like an outdoor theatre show years ago, and like a week before opening night, it was a mess. It was a fucking mess. It was running too long, and wardrobe wasn't done, and queues were all over the place. It was just like, it was so many moving parts, and it was just super stressful. And the cast and the director were not getting along. And then, like 3 days out from the show, there's a huge blow up. The cast fucking mutinied. The director walked, and it was just like, what the fuck do we do? And I remember I was only like 19 or 20 at the time, and I remember like talking to the producer, and he's like, well, we've already sold the first like week. We have to do the show. And so he's like, because I was working as a director's assistant, he's like, can you run the rehearsals for the next like 3 days until opening night? And I'm like I'm fucking 19. Sure, no problem, like with all these experienced actors. But so we just fronted up the next day, and I explained what was going on, that, Rob's gone. We don't know if he's coming back, but, this is our obligations. And they said, okay, let's just fucking do it. And it was
Show must go on.
Yeah. And so the next 3 days, like I just watched as, they sort of, but we all had this feeling of like, it's going to be a fucking disaster. And I just didn't say anything. I just like sat, I would just basically keep notes, just feed them lines, and then I didn't try and direct them, just let them get through it. Opening night comes along, and it goes really well. Everyone's actually quite relaxed because the tension's gone. The director's not there. The director comes on opening night after the show, comes in and apologizes, and is like, so I'm coming back to the show. Rest of the run was a fucking disaster. Like, for a brief window, Billy left, and somehow we managed to get it together. But then Billy came back. He's found an extra $2 million, and he's brought Blink 182 with him. Because that was the other amazing thing in it, was the way Billy would disappear and then come back with another check. Like, they would just had a money hose. There's a fucking problem with sewage. Okay, well, we'll just hire 30 guys to work 24 hours a day for fucking 6 days just to dig like trenches and stuff. And he would somehow find these checks left, right, and center. That's the amazing part. For a guy with no demonstrable charisma or smarts, even though we didn't really hear from him, how's he getting that money? How's he getting it out of people? I mean, big checks.
There must have been something about him that we didn't get to see, because, like you said, he had that capacity to. I mean, I think part of it was just the broader idea of what it is that we're talking about, which is, he had Ja Rule, and he had, these models, and he had whatever.
The
point
image.
the point of entry for something being of quality now is so low that you can convince people to give you millions of dollars based on the fact that you've got Ja Rule, some Instagram models, and Blink 182 involved.
And it's funny because they did sort of like foreshadow at the start of the documentary. They talk about when he had that business in New York, he was driving like a Rolls Royce or some fancy car, and he's had this whole thing about you got to look like a success to be a success. So that was his kind of thing. So he's taken that and like weaponized it on social media. These are the most successful people online.
Who do you feel most sorry for in the whole saga?
Well, there was one guy who was the sort of hippie dude. You know, the guy that I think had dreadlocks or something, and I don't know what his specific job was, but he was the one who talks about, like, the day before people were due to land, he sent out this email just saying, we don't have this, we don't have that, we're not going to do this, we're not honoring this part of the contract. The only foreseeable option is to cancel and refund the money. And they write back, you know, your beaming smile will welcome them and you can show them your yoga moves or some fucking, like as if Mike Howell, you know, some AI automated response. Like it was just, and that guy I identified with the most because, like I said, I've been in those situations where it's like, it's all fucking falling apart. I'm so fucking scared and tired and exhausted. God, the idea that we just pull the pin, you know, maybe that's for the best. And then just to have like, just nothing to come back.
I mean, I feel most sorry for obviously the locals because they were the most exploited in this entire saga, and yet another great, like if you want to examine this on a meta level, could not be a better metaphor for just white people's attitude to indigenous people around the world, which is like, we're here, oh, we've got cocaine and Instagram models. Could you do all the work? We're not going to pay you. Good luck to you. So that bit of it was like obviously full on. And then there was like, you know, poor man Steve Martin who was willing to suck a dick for water, which is one of the great. Like, do you think when he told that story,
Martin Steve,
do you think that Martin Steve knew when he shared the anecdote about the, like that Billy had said to him that he was going to have to suck the customs guys? So for people who haven't seen it,
and how could you not? Because it's been memed.
They need these trucks full of water, and Billy has told this guy who works for him, who's like a Steve Martin lookalike, older gay guy, Martin Steve, that he may need to suck the customs guy's dick to release the water. Now it seems that
I don't know how they got to that point in the negotiations.
Well, it feels like in the telling of the story, because it does not happen, that was never what. I feel like that was just in Billy's head.
Yeah.
I feel like Billy thought that might be an arrangement that worked rather than anything else. But when Martin Steve tells that story, do you think that he was aware that he was about to become one of the most famous people on the planet?
I don't know. Like, I liked him. He was probably my favorite.
Yeah, he's a sympathetic character.
Because he seems quite like... He's still befuddled
Yeah.
about how he... Because I think he'd worked with
Well,
Billy.
he thinks Billy's a genius.
Well, yeah, he'd worked with him
He's certainly
previously.
one of those people who got sucked up in the idea that Billy is this sort of wonderfully creative person.
Yeah. But I think that he must have known. Like, you don't just confess something like that to a Netflix documentary and think, I wonder if anyone will see it. It's not like our podcast. It's not like, you know... Our stupid anecdotes. Like, he must have known. And in the telling of the story, he does kind of joke about it. Like, you know, I'm a successful businessman in my own right. Like, and I was about to suck someone's dick to get water through customs.
I mean, but at the same time, when you're in the middle of that situation and you need the water, you've got to think, oh, well, I guess if I've got to suck one dick to get like 3 tankers of water, then maybe I need to suck one dick.
The part of the story that confused me is when he talks about preparing to suck the dick.
Yeah.
And he goes home and he gargles mouthwash.
Yeah.
And I'm like...
Seems like an after thing
Yeah.
more than a before thing.
But I don't think his penis is going to care.
His dick doesn't care
In fact,
how fresh.
I mean, I'm pretty sure having like a minty mouth might be a bit uncomfortable for a penis. There you go. Take that out of context. Ruin my career. Just the kind of thing you don't want becoming a meme.
When did you... So there's these people who start thinking they're not answering my questions. I'm contacting them about the details of this because there were those people, right? People who were just like, we're not getting the right information.
Yeah, what airport are we flying from? What
Where are we
time's our
flying to?
flight?
This doesn't seem to be matching up to the details we've been given in the first place. Would you? So say that instead of this festival, you've got tickets to go to Coachella, right? But then suddenly they're not. The dates don't seem to line up, or they're changing the venue, blah blah blah.
I've had this experience, Will. I went to Splendor in the Grass many years ago, in which I was told that we're going to have, we're staying in the artist area. Everyone's going to have their own camper van, 4 people to a camper van, big camper van. I've done a deal with blah, blah, blah. We'd have to do a little bit of work, during the day, but the rest of the time you can check out the festival. And as we're getting closer, where the park? Where do we pick up our passes from? Nothing. And we just assumed, this dude, he'll just meet us there and we'll have passes. We turn up, it's pissing down with rain, drive the car into the car park, get fucking bogged. I let the girls out of the car so these guys can help me debog the car. I'm covered in water. The dude who's done the arrangements walks up and he is clearly stressing out of his fucking brain, eyeballs popping out of his head. And he's like, you got to go. You got to come with me now. Got to come with you now. And I'm like, I've got to unpack the car. Got to debog the car and unpack it. It's like, no, got to go now. And I'm like, well, just give me my pass. I'll meet you in there. No. There was 3 passes between 12 people. He got us in off 3 passes by doing 4 trips. But then once we're in there, you're fucking stuck. Because if you leave that pass, not getting back in, I had to go and get... And there weren't 3 camper vans for 4 of us. There was 1 camper van for 12 people. And it was that kind of Lord of the Flies kind of moment. And it was we did just trust that it was going to be okay. Sure, granted, it hadn't been 2 weeks or a month of info that made me slightly suspicious, but it was enough if you were a more kind of cautious person to be like, well, hang on, just send us the tickets or let us know where the car park's going to be or any of that kind of stuff. So
we're into, because the part of the joy of it is
when they arrive,
the unfolding realization, because they get on the plane and the plane is nothing like what it was promised at that point. And do you think this is going to be a disaster? Or when they land and they just take them to that bar and start feeding everybody tequila, is there still part of you that's like, no, this will be fine. This will be great. This is all part of it.
Me personally, because I tend to be a pessimist, glass half empty guy. As soon as I see that plane, I'm like, this is going to be the worst weekend of our lives.
Do you get on the plane?
Yes.
If that plane...
Yes, mainly because I know my friends would be fucking hassling me and I succumb to peer pressure. I'm not going to be the guy to fucking pull the pin and that's going to stress Jem out or stress my friends out because suddenly I'm not coming, I'm breaking up the party. Now I've infected their mood. I would be my spider sense is tingling, but I'm not going to be the guy to fucking kick up a fuss.
Okay, so they, like you said, the glamping tents have not been provided. Instead, they've got these
UN
emergency tents left over from... a cyclone or a hurricane or something.
That's right.
Some tropical storm.
Oh, and by the way, it has rained 3 days before the festival and completely demolished the campsite.
And all the mattresses are completely soaking wet. So you get off. They don't take you to the campsite. They take you to a local bar to drink tequila.
I'm okay. If I'm on the plane and we get to that bar, I'm like, okay, this looks nice. It's a beach and there's a bar and they're playing music and stuff. I'm okay at that bar. That looks legit to me.
Yeah, so at that point, is there a little bit of you that's starting to go, oh,
who's got the coke?
Yeah. I reckon the guy organising the festival. Yeah. I reckon he... So when does it start to really dawn on you that this is, that you're in trouble here?
2 hours. I reckon an hour, into the second hour, that's when I'm like, this seems fucking weird. Just because there'd be more and more people arriving and there didn't seem to be any marshals or anyone. And I also think that, that uneasy after an hour going to second hour.
And so then what do you do? If you're in that situation. So
I try and find someone and ask what's going on. Can we go to our tents?
Which is what a lot of people started to do.
Yeah. I mean, I did admire the commitment for people to have a good time. There's some people there who probably were having those exact same thoughts, who were like, fuck it. I've been saving all year for this. It's my one weekend away. Give me that. I'm doing a layback. Give me that fucking tequila.
Well, that's what I liked as well. There were some people like, nah, this will be fine.
Yeah.
Let's have another tequila.
Yeah.
This will be fine. We're all here together, guys. The music's pumping. This is going to be awesome. What
Yeah,
could go wrong?
I think that first hour, I would have
Yeah.
been having a great time. That first hour, I'd be thinking, this is going to be fucking a really great weekend.
How good's this?
Yeah.
Free tequila. This is great. We're at the beach. I'm drinking tequila. Party's never going to end. We might stay an extra week.
Yeah. So then when I ask the official and they
Yeah.
start getting the run around, then that's when I go back to you guys and start
Hey,
saying
guys,
like,
hey.
what the fuck's going on? Where are our bags for a start? And why do they keep playing the same 6 songs? Are we in hell? Did we die on that plane? Is this Lost?
Guys. Oh, it was much worse than Lost. Like
yeah.
nothing that happened on Lost was anywhere near as terrifying as being on that fucking island for the Fyre Festival.
So there was no actual artists either, were there?
No, everyone
So
cancelled.
that's what I don't understand is like, what are you delaying? You know what I mean? Like, why? What did you
inevitable.
think was going to fucking happen?
Yeah,
You had no artists.
Some miracle
That, like, Blink-182
were going to decide to actually come.
Yeah, because
I mean, it's a fair point, isn't it? Because like,
Didn't
I
some
understand the
artist-
idea of like keeping the con up in the hope that you can pull
if we
it
can
all off.
just give me
But if
5 more minutes.
everybody's,
There's
what,
no
are
one
they just
there.
thinking they'll get everyone drunk enough that you can just go out in a pair of like 3/4 shorts and pretend you're a Blink-182?
There was probably also an element of the Fyre Fest guys that are like, well, we invited fucking Paris Hilton and Emily, whatever, Rianvani Jabisi.
Riavani Vajesi.
We invite all these people. When they show up, it's going to be a party.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what you're thinking is, and she's friends with so and so. Maybe little Bow Wow will get up on stage.
Exactly.
and-
Maybe she'll bring Little Bow Wow.
Yeah, I don't know why I put those together.
Nah.
First rap that came to
Famously
mind.
friends with Little Bow Wow, Paris Hilton.
Yeah. But that's what I reckon that they were probably doing. But I mean, if I was one of the kind of, if I was Yoga Guy or Martin Steve or any of those kind of mid-level guys, I'm having the most massive anxiety attack because you just know that there's no way out of this. Like there is no excuse. You fucking like led people to hell and you knew it.
The only way out of it was to stop them before they got on the plane.
Yes.
If at that point
But then you deal with the
they
locals.
had just gone, we cannot do this. But I reckon you could have covered up. You could have gone, we had like the weather came through. It's completely destroyed everything. We just don't think it would be a safe environment. And you just put on safety. You go, well, refund. I guess they couldn't afford to refund everyone's money. They'd spent all the fucking money. That was the problem. But at least then maybe you wouldn't have gone to fucking prison.
Yeah.
Or at least then you wouldn't have put all people through this thing that you had no way of making good, that you clearly knew was going to be terrible. If you called it at the airport and just gone, I'm sorry, we've really fucked
Mea
this
culpa,
up.
Will.
Yeah.
A mea culpa?
Yeah.
I mean, I think so. Like, I am very much of that. I've worked on stuff, like when Gemini had the production.
As they all got on the plane and sat down, you just appear from the front and go, you may have noticed from the state of this plane that this has all been an elaborate con. I feel like it's time to come clean. None of you should have got on board this plane. You're all suckers, to be honest. Give me $5.
When Gemini had our own production company, whenever we worked on a music video or a commercial or whatever that got tricky, like dates got cancelled, we couldn't get a weather hold. There was some kind of, as the producer, you're conservative, and I'd always be like, maybe we should pull the pin, maybe we should, move it to another week, whatever. And Gem was always the one to say, no, we have to commit to it because there's too many elements now, too many things are going. And I think that's the kind of balance you need, when you're putting on a show like that, is you need to have that creative force and someone with the vision, but you also need someone doing the checks and balances. Yeah. The problem was the checks and balances were there, but the fucking guy leading it just barreled past all of them.
Yeah, that's right. It wasn't like, why didn't somebody say we can't do this?
It was repeated.
Because repeatedly along the way, people said, no, we can't do this.
And there's a certain point too, I think when you're doing an event like that, there is a point of no return. Like once you've spent everyone's fucking money, because when you...
But again, like you're saying, I understand that point, but you've spent all the money, you've gone, well, we've got to put this... Like, if it's a show or whatever, you're like, okay, well, it's not maybe rehearsed the way that it should be or whatever, but everyone's coming and we've spent the money.
You're going to get something.
We're going to do the best we possibly can. It might not be the greatest thing that we've ever done, but, we'll do it. But there was no way that they could pull this out.
Yeah.
It wasn't like there was going to be any... Like you said, They couldn't just get who can play guitar. Anyone know all the small
I know
things?
Wonderwall. Some guy just playing Wonderwall again and again. The bit that blew my mind. So it's a disaster. It starts spreading across the internet like wildfire. The famous sandwich photo, which I thought was a really poignant moment, that it was launched off the back of an Instagram model posting that orange Fyre Festival logo, and it was ended with a photo of a shitty sandwich. So it all ends in disaster. People are suing Martin. He gets charged with something or another, like fraud or some...
Well, I know that Ja Rule, there's that great scene with Ja Rule on the phone, you know, where they're filming it, where they're saying, he goes, we'll be fine. We'll just, we'll get on with it. Everything's going to be fine. We'll keep doing Magenta or Magneto or whatever the fuck the name of the other thing was. And then they were like, well, no. It's fraud. Yeah. And he said, no, it's not fraud. It's like false advertising. It's like, yeah, that is fraud.
Fraud.
Literally what you're saying.
False fraud.
It's just false advertising. It's just
fraud advertising. So he gets charged and he's out on bail. And then this is the most extraordinary part, which makes me think that he must be some kind of sociopath, is that he starts up a new business.
A new con.
With another con man, like a protege.
Yeah.
Calling people, offering them like exclusive tickets to Broadway shows and Knicks tickets and all this kind of stuff that don't fucking exist. But he's documenting it. Like, I watched that bit and was like, oh, like he's clearly, this is like a sociopathic behavior. He has no awareness of what he's just been through or how angry people are or how serious these charges. He's just like a shark in water. He's just going to keep swimming.
Well, I think for him, he's like, it's that Wolf of Wall Street thing, right? Like, it's that idea that, that's the American dream, that you just, I mean, why wouldn't you believe that? Like, the president.
Here we go. Here we go. Will's just dragging his soapbox out, ladies and gentlemen. I'll give him a second. It takes him a while to get up on it. And he's up and go.
The president of the United States is a failed business person, a brand, a guy who's failed more often than he's succeeded. And that kind of is part of that idea of that American dream, is like you bankrupt and you start again. Like you look at, the way that Wall Street operates, you look at the way that the big banks and the finance sector operates, it works like that all the time. It is a house of cards and a house of cons, and you roll the dice on one of your cons actually working out. You don't stop conning. You just get back in the game and you roll around another con.
The con? And like literally give like a jury evidence of
the
con?
Well, in a world where we're willing to elect Donald Trump despite the fact that, he's on tape talking about grabbing women by the pussy and stuff and, mocking intellectually, mocking disabled people and all sorts of, this sort of shit. In a world where, Ted Bundy becomes a sex symbol or whatever, that notoriety has become its own currency, 100%, right?
Yeah.
So people think that, it doesn't matter if you're, famous for being good. It matters that you're famous. It matters that you're part of this exclusive club. It doesn't matter if it's all a con.
Did you ever get the sense that Billy wanted to be part of that club? Like he wanted to be, one of the beautiful, good-looking...
Yeah, well, there's that scene where he goes, he's selling false dreams to losers or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but you're the loser. Like, you've created this whole false dream around you because at the very heart of it, you're the actual loser. You're the... When
you are the loser, sir.
Yeah, you, sir, are the loser. I say good day to you.
Which is a funny way for Ja Rule to end a phone call. Doesn't sound very much like Ja Rule.
I mean, a Ja Rule is such a good example as well, because who is Ja Rule? Like
the way you talk, the way you feel, I'm real, the way you put I don't know.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's not even good.
What's his Ja Rule's biggest song?
What's your favorite?
What you do last night? What you do? Da-da-do. Like,
I mean...
I'll look it up. I sound like the Cookie Monster. All right. We'll have to save the Ja Rule chat for next time. I'm really looking forward to that. So can you. Because we need to get to this week's Patreon correspondence. Remember to win yourself a TOFOP sticker pack, 1 in 50 limited edition. You become a Patreon subscriber, you help support the show, you write us a letter, and if we deem it worthy, you'll win a TOFOP sticker pack. And I didn't really think this through very well. Will, like most of our ventures, because we've had a couple of winners who live overseas, and the actual postage of sending
Of course.
sticker pack is fucking punching a hole in our savings.
This whole podcast is a Fyre Festival.
All right. Oh no, you can't write back again. Can we have someone write back to us again? He's written once. He wants to write in again. Do we read two?
I don't know.
All right. This is from Jason. Hey, Wil and Charlie. Jason here again, ready for round 2 after a narrow defeat in the last.
Oh, okay,
episode.
that's okay. You're allowed to reapply
As many
It's
times
like,
as you want.
Once you win,
Yeah.
you can't reapply.
Okay.
But if you, okay.
So let me begin, Charlie. Here's my address. As I've understood, it's worth multiple points. That's right. And he lives in England. Great. This is going to cost fucking a fortune. Guess who's not winning this week either? While I know the address is enough to win for Charlie, I better find something else to get Wil on board. So as you can see, I live in the UK. Before that, I lived in Italy for 10 years. And some of that time I was in Venice. And I was traveling to London while listening to me lose the sticker book on that last episode of TOFOP. So, I've just mentioned 3 cities, London, Venice, and Bath. I know people who absolutely love these places and are always going on about them. But, personally, I'm not a fan, and for all 3, it's due to the hassle of travelling and the inability to drive your car and park near where you have to be. You're both well-travelled men, so I would ask, are there any cities that are universally praised, that you do not care for, or for some particular reason that is unique to you? Or is there somewhere that has a bad reputation that you think is much better than people say? Finally, I think the additional postage to send stickers to the UK should work in my favour, as that is a very on-brand TOFOP business endeavour.
Oh, that is absolutely true. I will say that. I've never been to Bath, so I can't comment on Bath. London, I find a bit... I have previously had mixed experiences in London. Amy loves London and would love to spend more time there. And it's one of those cities that I've just never quite fallen in love with in the way that other people do. I've had some good times in London, and it's obviously a beautiful city, but it hasn't sort of captured my imagination in the way that it has for other people. And Venice is probably my least favourite Italian city. So I kind of get that. I love Italy, but Venice wasn't my favourite bit of it. Worldwide, though, is it like what are the sort of places that people absolutely...
New York,
I
Paris.
love. Paris I love as well.
Amsterdam,
Never
Berlin.
been to Amsterdam.
Amsterdam is my current favourite place.
Really?
Amsterdam and Lisbon in Portugal are my 2 favourite cities going around. I did them in the same trip, and it was fantastic. I went from LA to Amsterdam, and it was like going from shadows to light. Yes. Like I'd been locked in your apartment writing for like 8 weeks, and I was just feeling so like malnutritioned from lack of culture. And then I go to Amsterdam, where it's just fucking art galleries and bands and antique shops and canals. And
You were in my apartment in LA, and you went to Amsterdam, so there was somewhere where there was less work.
Yeah, exactly. All right, next correspondence is from Brooke. Hi, Wil and Charlie, Charlie and Wil. Long-time listener, first-time caller. I've been a TOFOP listener since pretty much day one. So I have been through the ups and downs of Charlie's home and away gig, FOFOP guest Charlie's, still a listener, and the great return of Charlie. A lot of use of the word Charlie. I moved from Sydney to New York.
A lot of Charlie in the Fyre Festival as well.
I moved from Sydney to New York around the same time the podcast started, so it's nice to hear the dulcet tones of some Aussie accents on the way to work. My favourite episode is probably when you discuss Back to the Future Day or Back to the Future 2 Day, when Wil discusses his hatred of tennis. I don't remember that.
I don't remember that.
Sounds on brand. What are some of your favourite Australian podcasts?
Oh, okay. Well, the Weekly Planet we mention quite often, but that's definitely right up there.
Yeah.
The Little Dum Dum Club, who have just sold out a couple of shows in London as
I
well,
know.
which is pretty fantastic. And they're just flying at the moment, Little Dum Dum Club.
Sizzletown, Tony Martin's, amazing.
So I got sent. So there's a winemaker who's made a specific wine for Tony Martin's Sizzletown
I know,
podcast.
they're sponsoring his show.
Yeah, well, the bottle is downstairs.
Oh, really?
They sent me a bottle and a Sizzletown t-shirt, which I wore at Probably Science at the live show last night. So
Sizzletown is like, if you are a Tony Martin fan, this is like Tony Martin with no restrictions, being quintessentially Tony Martin. It's fucking brilliant. I've been listening since the very first episode, and it's like, it's such a great concept. You're like, God damn it, why didn't I think of that? But you have to be Tony Martin
yeah,
to be able to pull it off.
You think, why didn't I think of that? And also, why am I not Tony Martin? If I was Tony Martin and I thought of this, I like Do Go On. I've been listening to a lot recently. I like Josh Earl's podcast, Don't You Know Who I Am?
If you want a bit of a sport podcast that isn't Two Guys, One Cup, I've been listening to a great one called That Was the season, the greatest season that was, and it's all about the 1993 AFL season, but they talk to all these people who are behind the scenes, because in terms of like goals kicked and powerful forwards kicking, and close games and stuff, and it's a sports podcast, but it's really about the culture and the stories behind football. It's fucking amazing.
Junk Time AFL podcast.
And that's it. There's no other good Aussie podcasts. Sorry, guys.
There's heaps of other good Aussie podcasts. Oh, Finding Drago. Drago. That is a really fantastic podcast. I highly recommend that.
She signs off anyway. Thanks for all you do. Really appreciate the laughs. Cheers. P.S. I recently had a dream about Charlie dying, but that's a whole other story. What a great way to finish the show.
Wow.
Is it Brooke or is it Jason?
I don't know.
Well, what's cheaper?
What are overrated cities versus what are your favourite Australian podcasts? And not, I mean, all due respect to both of them, I don't feel like...
Well, look, let's just make it easy. Brooke didn't supply her address.
Oh, okay.
It's going to Jason.
Congratulations, Jason.
That's all you need to do. Let's use that. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter. And yes, you can support the show by going to patreon.com/TOFOP. Also, check out our YouTube channel. Our brand new web series, Lessons for Life with Alan Mercedes, is playing at TOFOP TV. So just, if you go to YouTube and type in TOFOP TV, it'll take you straight there. You got live shows?
Yes, Wil Informed is the name of my current live show, and March the 8th it will be in Hobart, although by the time people hear this I imagine that might be sold out. Melbourne International Comedy Festival for a month at the Comedy Theatre, so come along and see that, and then other places later on.
All right, I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Wil Anderson.
Ba-dum-ba-ba-dum-bum.
This podcast is part of the Planet Broadcasting Network.
Visit planetbroadcasting.com for more podcasts from our great mates. I mean, if you want. It's up to you.